Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the wonderful world of YouTube, where we can like, comment, and subscribe however much we want and enjoy the Saturday evening together. So, welcome all in. But at any rate, let's us introduce everybody in here in the chat that has come in so far. Jesse, thank you for telling me that I'm 1 minute late, but it's all right. I'll take 1 minute, maybe one and a half, close to two. But yep, thanks for coming in. Good evening. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying your weekend so far. I know this is kind of sketchy to do because it's during the Aquashella in New Jersey, but I thought I'd give it a whirl anyways because I had a prior event the night before. So that is why I'm doing it tonight on Saturday evening. So welcome in, Jesse. Welcome in, 3G. Thanks for coming in and hanging out with Price Tag Aquariums, or whatever you guys want to call me, PT or Joe or whoever. um, but yeah, it's been a good day so far. I've been really occupied with a lot of stuff today, and ended up being, late for something else. But it's all right. It was better late than never. So it's been really good. I knew that I caught Jesse's live stream for a little bit this morning at 9. If you haven't checked his channel out, make sure to do so because he's a very knowledgeable person when it comes to fish keeping. He's been doing it for a while, longer than me, and he's a very handy man, as he says so in the chat as well. That he's good to have someone around whenever you need him, because like you said, he's doing some bathroom stuff. He's done a lot of stuff in his fish room. It's all like DIY stuff, and if you ever need someone that needs a good DIY tips and tricks and different odds and ends, he'd be the guy to go to. But yeah, who else we got? We got Jose's in here. Just got back from Aquashella. You went for one day then, I bet. You went from because you're pretty close. You're in New York, so what's up, bro? That's my brother. For anyone who doesn't know, thanks for stopping by and hanging out for a little bit. I appreciate it. If anyone who wanted to know, I went to my brother's band show last night, so that was pretty cool. That was I believe that was his first time I've seen. Well, first time I've seen him play in that band, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, so that's where my event was last night. So I had to reschedule my live stream for tonight instead of last night because I went and saw my brother's band watch, and that was cool. What else we got here? We have, Jose, I did see your little YouTube short there on about 6 minutes long. It seems like Aquashella was worth it and well worth your time for a day. So you're probably pretty close. Hello, Henry. Welcome in. Thanks for stopping by. We need a 5,000-gallon aquarium, Jesse. That is a massive aquarium. I think my next aquarium is probably going to be something massive. Like it's going to be something that I can stick like peacock bass in, or real big baller sharks. Something that's going to be huge, and it's going to take up the space of my 275s and my 260 gallons. Is kind of like my ultimate goal, is to have a big fish tank. Yeah, Jose, we're wondering if what kind of food stuff you picked up for us. You said it's about an hour and 15 from New York, was just there for about an hour, and that was the plan. That sounds easy enough. We were wondering if you picked up some Fluval stuff for us. If I were single, I would have multiple massive aquariums. Yes, but same with my situation, my friend. If it was, just me hanging out in the basement, I think that I would probably spend a lot more money on aquariums than I'd want to be. So I feel you on that one. But alas, family comes first, so we have to do what we got to do. So, hey, Craig, thanks for coming in and hanging out. Appreciate you coming in. I kind of like this topic today because I think it's kind of a neat thing to talk about. I feel like it hasn't really touched base on anyone else's live streams. I haven't seen it personally, per se, but I think it's something that's at least we can kind of converse and kind of relate to in a sense as to what our experiences have been. So I guess I want to go ahead and jump right into it. Fish room's been fine. Everything's been happy and healthy. Knock on wood, I haven't lost a fish in a very long time. So a hard knock on wood there, because everything in the fish room has been going great. My upstairs tank has been going phenomenal. No problems there. doing my typical maintenance and all that sort of thing. So this is the first time in a very long time to where like everything in the fish room has just been going great, and I've had no issues at all whatsoever. And it's just great. We can just sit back and relax and watch our fish tanks and realize that everything's going great, and you can enjoy the hobby for what it is, and not have to be stressed about who's beating up who or what's going on with this tank and why is this happening and that sort of thing. So look at Craig already up and at him and gifting the membership. Thank you so much for the gift, Craig. That is awesome. I greatly appreciate that, Craig's. Everyone give a shout out to Craig and give him a whole lot of thanks for giving out that membership. Just Jose said he just looked at them and kept going. Quick glance, picked up some fish and plants. Still need to do water changes. Hence the topic of for today. Yep, that is the topic for today, Jose. But yeah, I appreciate it. Don't forget to support the channel, even if the like, that helps, supports everything. Every little bit helps. So again, thank you so much, Craig, for gifting that membership. That's freaking awesome. You the man, my friend. So whoever got that gift membership, you have to check out some of the stuff the videos that you haven't seen yet. It's been a while since I've done a members only thing, but there are a few stuff out there that are members only that you can check out. So plus whenever I release videos, I try to do it a day or two in advance or something like that, so that way other people can comment and like and see the videos before they're released to the general public. Yeah, Craig comes in hot. Definitely, for sure. But for the topic for today, I have chosen if big water changes can be stressful for the fish. And the stuff that I've looked up, and from my personal experience, this is what I do. And I don't think I've ever done anything bigger personally than a 50, maybe pushing 60% water change myself. That is the most that I've ever done. And the only reason being is just because either one, I was kind of multitasking, or two, I was just trying to, when I was done medicating, that I was running, putting some carbon in, hanging the back filters to help get rid of that, and also try to clear up anything more of the medication, just try to help stabilize everything back up. But normally I do about like a 35 to 40%. Sometimes if I'm like, depending on my work schedule, I do about maybe 35, 40% every 2 weeks is kind of like my normal. But anything bigger than that, I really don't do. Now, I've also heard that pet stores, they sometimes, like I've been to local fish stores, not big box stores per se, because I'm not sure, I never really asked them, but I've been to other different local fish stores, and they do like 80 to 90% water changes. So they drain it all the way down to where the fish are like right down here, and then they fill it all back up. So if that works for them, great. So I kind of want to get your guys' 2 cents on this and see the topics are. And before I get into your guys' comments, Jesse said he did 75% a long time. All right. And once monthly. I knew Jesse was doing monthly water changes. Oh, hi, sweet Polly. Thanks for coming in, man. Appreciate it. Craig says just depending on the water temp, they can omit, but be freshwater. Don't hurt nothing. Over the years, I've shocked the fish maybe twice. But yeah, some things I wanted to bring up and mention to you guys is I don't personally think big water changes aren't really like inherently bad. I would say that they definitely, you guys all know what water changes do. They remove waste, prevent disease. That helps rebalance water parameters. They trigger breeding and that sort of thing. So it has a lot of good benefits. But I think it's more so in my personal belief and experience that whenever I was breeding fish, it did trigger some breeding, and that really helped with the process, especially if you like lower the temps and that sort of thing. I'm using big words, Jesse. Like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. How's that big word for you? Is that the biggest word in the English language? That's not even a word. Anyways, at any rate, I guess some things to look out for, like whenever you're doing big water changes, it's really not bad in my opinion. If someone else has another opinion, feel free to leave a comment on the YouTube comments. But I guess some things to look out for is if you have like some sensitive fish, like maybe like some shrimp or something, or if you have smaller fish that are sensitive to temperature changes that are drastic, because that's usually not a thing that's good for fish to go through. So they go through like a temperature shock. Um, and then also, of course, sometimes when you're multitasking, you have family or friends, or say if you're listening to music, or if you're getting distracted by XYZ, sometimes it's easy to forget, oh crap, there's a lot more water taken out than I thought there was, because that's happened to me a couple of times. I've only overfilled once in my life, and that was down here in the basement, thankfully. But some like other things to look out for would be like, if you tend to get distracted and forget to add your dechlorinator to get rid of those chloramines and chloramines and all your different stuff that comes out of your tap, with all your city water and that sort of thing. So not forget to add that in, because sometimes that gets easy to do. Another thing too is if you're heating your tanks with heaters, and if they're not aligned on the very bottom when you're doing your major water changes, to make sure you turn those heaters off if they don't automatically turn off on their own. Because I've had experience with smaller tanks when I had my smaller 10 gallons that I had to I had all my 10 gallons at one point, because I think there were 6 of them before. I think actually all 9 of them for a short period of time. Couldn't think of it, did have heaters for a short period of time. And I had them all plugged into a central power strip, and there was just a switch that I would flip off all the heaters before I do all the water changes, and then I would flip them all back on. So that's something to consider, that if you're doing major water changes, to make sure to turn off your heaters. If you have like real cheap Amazon heaters that aren't like real name brand or well known or well reputable, that you make sure to turn your heaters off, so that way that you don't ruin those, and then you might have something bad happen to your fish. And also, if you're running hang in the back filters that don't turn off on their own, or if they're not able to run with the water changes, make sure to turn those off to make sure they're not, run on air, make sure there's always, water, so that way that the motors don't go bad on them, that sort of thing. So these are just things to think about whenever you're doing major water changes. And then, of course, anything that might be sensitive to water changes that are major, like I said, shrimp might be, maybe some live plants that people would know of that might be sensitive to water changes. And also how often you're doing these big water changes and stuff. So this can all kind of play a big part into how you do your maintenance schedule, how sensitive your fish are, the stocking level of your fish, what comes out of your tap and what you add, what type of dechlorinator do you add, and all that sort of thing. So I kind of want to get your everyone's input on how you feel about this topic and what you think about big water changes, because whenever I went to local fish stores and saw like these massive water changes, they were like draining like 80, 85, 90% of the water, and all these fish are just hovering on the bottom. I'm just thinking, is this really necessary? And now I talked to one of the owners, and he was like, oh yeah, I do this once a week. And I'm just like, but there was only like 2 fish in there. I mean, they might have a water change system hooked up too, because that's something I didn't address, so maybe that's just something they just do to every tank, no matter if they have 1 fish or like 20 fish in the tank per se. But it was just kind of like one of those things that, like, man, I only do, everything has gone really well down here in the fish room, generally speaking, since my fish career. And I only do about maybe 40% is probably my average water changes every couple of weeks. Now, when I was breeding and stuff, it was a little bit more often with the smaller tanks, because you have to make sure your water's in pristine condition. So I still did the 40%, but I was doing them like weekly or so, and just getting the water out really quick and putting it back in. I had a really good system for that, so that worked out. But I want to see your guys' input and what your guys' thoughts are on that. 3G, going back through the comments, I'm on a well. I put siphon on one side of the tank and water in another side, and then let it run to equal 100% water change. That's a good system. Yeah, I don't blame you at all. That works really well. Yeah, I think someone else is streaming live, if I'm not mistaken. I think Whip, he told me that someone else is streaming at the same time. So it was kind of like people might be going back and forth or might be hanging out over there. I can't remember who was streaming. Let's see. What else we got here? If you haven't already subbed to my channel, I highly recommend doing so. I just hit 1,700 subs, I believe, recently, so I thought that was pretty cool. We all know that Jesse hates heaters, and I do myself. I had one bad experience with heaters to where, long story short, I went to bed the one night, everything was fine, and then I woke up the next morning, and I woke up to like almost 30 Mbunas, ACI yellowtails. They were all young. They're probably about an inch and a half big, and they were all on the ground dead because of the heater malfunction. And ever since then, I took out all the heaters and I did something in my fish room to heat all my tanks up on a natural basis, so nothing ever gets shocked. Even when I temperature match, I use like one of those thermometers, the digital ones, and I constantly check it, that sort of thing. But generally speaking, like I don't like heaters either, just because of the simple fact because it's one more thing you have to maintain, one more thing you have to buy. And what I mean by maintain is to make sure, like, to clean them so you can visually check and make sure that that your reading there is correct, and that you have to replace them every couple years or so, because that's kind of like a general longevity of like heaters is a general base of a good practice to replace them every couple of years to make sure that you're never going to have any heater failures or malfunctions and that sort of thing. Super secret crypto clearance, expensive fish coming. Well, look at you and your big words now. A bucket list fish that is priceless. A bucket list fish that is priceless for one reason I will reveal later, and I'm looking forward to that. Temperature up to 86 now. Yeah, I think that would be like I technically still have one heater running, and it's upstairs in my tank, and I have to connect my temperature controller to that one because I had removed it from my 75 gallon, which is sitting over here, that was upstairs on a temperature controller, and I'm going to move it over to the one that's upstairs, my 125. So I haven't done that yet. That's kind of on my to-do list, because I would not run a heater without plugging it into one of those temperature controllers that if it reaches a certain point that it'll automatically shut off and then return back on after so long. 86. So it makes me think the only thing I can think of that needs a high temperature would be discus, but I don't think, Jesse, that you are a discus guy. I could be wrong, but I'm kind of curious to see what your plan is for that. So let's see, what else have we got? Oh, okay, Aquafunk. Okay, so is it Aquafunk and Jorge Mexicali? Because I did see something that they were going to do another one soon. I can't remember. Thank you, Craig. Thanks, Craig. I appreciate it. That also see. Okay, so you have 2 300 watt fluvials. Okay. Yeah, I knew that Jesse had a Mr. Cool unit, especially when it comes to hot weather in the Carolinas. I know that for a fact. So, yeah, and that's one thing to look out for too. That's kind of an unfortunate thing that I went through, Craig. I'm glad that you were able to save those giraffes, if I'm reading that correctly. Thankfully, that the fish, I had to look at it as even though it was a horrible situation, no one ever wants to go through something like that. Because I've never lost a fish when it came to draining the water a lot to have a heater malfunction, because that wasn't the case. Because I remember that night too, because it was just a regular day, like any other day. Like it was just one of the heaters just went, and it was one of those cheap heaters that I got from Amazon, no name brand or nothing reputable. It's just one of those things that, like, as I was progressing my fish room, I was just throwing heaters in. But yeah, it's just one of those things you really have to think about, like whenever you're thinking, well, how many years have I had this heater? And did I shut the heater off before doing a water change? It's like another thing to consider thinking about. But the inkbirds are definitely sweet poly, or something that that's exactly what I was just talking about, is those inkbirds. That's one thing that's on my to-do list this weekend. Hopefully I can plug that in and I get that hooked up to my tank upstairs because it's the only tank in the house that has a heater to it right now. So I want to make sure to protect that heater and those fish, because those fish in there are absolutely, my most precious fish at the moment. Holy cow, tongue twister. She sells seashells by the seashore. One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. Maybe I'm reading too much Fox and Socks, or maybe I'm not reading enough Fox and Socks because I'm getting my tongue twisted. But yeah, at any rate, anyways, yeah, I really like those ink birds. Yeah. But yeah, I want to know your guys' thoughts. What is your guys' anyone that's in the chat that's live and in the comments below? I want to know what your guys' thoughts on what's your biggest water change that you've ever done before, and why was it that big of a water change, and what was the reasoning behind it? Or do you want to mention, as an example, what is your regular water change system that you have, and what is your normal amount that you like to take out and put back in? So I really like to know what your guys' thoughts are on that. And also, in your opinion, do you feel like if you do big water changes, does it stress the fish out, or have you guys had no problems at all, and you feel like big water changes are okay? I mean, it's just something that, like I said, all the things considered whenever doing big water changes, to make sure you kind of dot your I's and cross your T's and that sort of thing. So it's very interesting. Is it storming at your place, Jesse? I know that Ben Ochart had some connectivity issues today, so I don't know if that was just previous storms or whatever, but yeah. Let me know your guys' thoughts on big water changes and what you guys have done in the past and what's worked for you. And if you have no issues on it, then good for you guys. I mean, if whatever, like I said, this hobby is very vast, and you do whatever works for you, works best for you, and that's the beauty of it. Okay, so that's close, but nothing storming. Okay. Yeah, so that was one thing I really like about the water changes myself when I was breeding too, Craig's, is it has a big part of my breeding process when I was down here doing that. And I would adjust the temperature. Like what I would do is if I was really trying to get, like if there were certain fish that weren't really, having at it per se, that one tactic that I did that didn't work was I did about a 60% water change, 65% water changes, and then I adjusted the temperature ever so slightly to like a few degrees, so that when I make it colder too. And then at the same time, I would move the decorations around a little bit and I'd flatten the sand out, move the decorations around at the same time, so that way you kind of have that spring feel, I guess I could say, to where like fish would start breeding, kind of like a natural spring, water. I guess that would be the closest thing you could relate to get them to breed, and it worked for me because there was a couple of fish that I got that are not the sulfurhead lithobates, but they are a electric blue Ali. There's a few of those in there that I can point out. It just takes me a minute because they're a little lighter than the other ones, but I have to kind of hunt for them because there's so many in there that I finally got to breed due to that circumstance. So it's very, that's a good tactic to do. And he said that it works and you breed peppers, green peppers, red peppers. Didn't know they could breed, but fantastic. I'm just kidding, Craig's. 4 times last week in 6 days. Yeah, that works. That definitely worked for you. Absolutely. That's fantastic. Yeah. Corys. That's cool. I've never bred Corys before. Are they let's see, are they egg layers? I don't know a whole lot about breeding Corys, Craig, so you have to fill me in on that. Are they egg layers? Are they just natural? I'm curious. Yeah, we haven't had too many storms here, Jesse. We've had a very hot summer, But like the storms here in Ohio, they really haven't been that bad. We might have like a small storm here and there, but like overall, we've never had any major thunderstorms, which is really rare because we usually have at least one or two like massive thunderstorms around here to where like trees are down, the electric goes out, there's stuff all over the roads and stuff. But I like this year, generally speaking, really wasn't that bad. I'm thankful for that. Okay, they put them everywhere then. Okay, I didn't know that. That's cool. I've never, like I said, I've never bred Corys, but I think that would be really neat to get like some mixtures of, because Corys you can buy all different types of Corydoras, and I imagine like the colors that you get out of them would be pretty sweet. If you get like different tanks or not different tanks, but different color fish to breed, with the males and the females, and I think it would be a really neat process. But like I said, I stopped breeding the process. I had stopped doing that due to a abundance in family, one soon to be. So I'm looking forward to that. So I got to have to plan for the future. And I still have my PVC airline up, and they have all the valves still valved in. I didn't take any of those out or cap any of those or anything like that. So they're all just closed. So if I ever decide to change my mind in the future, that it's there in case I need it, which is great. And another thing too is what I thought about doing in the fish room that I thought about the other day is right now I have my 220-gallon run with two FX6s, and I also have these two behind me run on canister filters as well. This one has a Fluvo FX, and this one has it's a Fluvo, but it's not the FX4 filters or anything like that. It's a 307, I think, that's running on this side. So if I were to, I don't lose power a whole lot in this area. I've been very lucky because like right down the road in the main part of my area, it loses power just as often as where I used to live. But like here in like this township area, I've been very fortunate to where if it ever goes out, it goes out for a very brief time and then comes back on. So everything, I've never had any close calls with the fish due to a power outage here. But not that I'm saying that it can't happen, but it was one of those things I thought of that like I better leave all these valves in here in case if something ever does happen, keep some extra airline around here just in case. So that way, if I do lose power, I do have a jackery that I only have a couple of outlets for that I could plug in for both of these down here. But since I got this 220, I kind of thought in my mind, if the power does go out, it wouldn't be a bad idea to at least have some surface agitation. So for the time being, I would thought about doing this, but just running a real long airline coming from my PVC on both sides of my 220. So that way, if the power does go out for a long period of time, I can just plug the jackery into the my not air pump, the linear piston pump from man, I can't think of the website. Help me, Jesse. Help me, man. Help me. Gemco. There we go. That because right here, my Muna tank is run off of all the others air driven from the air pump there. And that's the only one that's. I mean, all the other fish tanks should be great. So that's why one of the plugs would be going to that jackery is to that linear piston pump, because it would keep all my fish down here alive. Now, as far as the 220 goes, I feel like I would need some long airlines just to have in an emergency. So that way, if the power does go out, I can just run the airlines in just to have that surface agitation. So that way, even though it's not being filtered, that the fish will still all be okay for that matter. So who else we got here? Yeah, I don't know. Craig's like, I've really loved Corydoras. There's just so many different colors, and they're like the whole buddy system that they have whenever they're running around with each other and stuff. They're just such a fun, easygoing community fish. They're probably one of my favorite community community fish to have, just because of the options that you can choose from. They're scurrying around the bottom. They go up and down the glass. I mean, they're just a very fun fish to have, and very easy to maintain, very easy to take care of. And I bet it'd be it'd probably be that much more fun to have to breed too. They're definitely a fun species. Hey, Scotty, thanks for coming in. We're talking about how water changes can affect your fish and how you do them. If you think big water changes are a necessity in certain situations or not, we kind of ran through, obviously water changes have good benefits to each other, like trigger breeding, like Craig's and I were talking about, and rebalance water parameters. But then things to look out for is like unplugging your heaters, your filters, not forgetting to add your chlorinator, unplug your hang in the backs, or any fish that might be sensitive, like shrimp, or any sensitive plants and stuff that you might think of, or big water changes. And I'm thinking like 85, 90%, like I've seen some local fish stores do that before. And I'm just like, holy cow, that's a lot of water changes. They do it like once a week, depending on the stock levels of your fish, what kind of fish, how big the tank is, and that sort of thing. And I was just telling these guys here that I do about a 50%, 40%-ish, give or take. Normally every 2 weeks is kind of like my normal routine. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. Hey, Brandon, thanks for stopping by. I know that there's another live stream going on. So I'm kind of, hopefully you guys hang out and stop by at least for a little bit and say hello. So I appreciate it. Scotty does a 50 to 6% on every tank. And how often do you do that? Is it every couple weeks? Because that's kind of how I run my schedule too. And I think a 40% water change is a pretty good, especially it all depends on, like I said, like with the Mbuna tank, I try to get closer to about 50% just because the stock level on my Mbuna tank is a little heavy for a 55 gallon. So I try to keep that tank up, a little bit more than the others do. With my 220, I did my 40% water change for the first time about a week and a half ago, and that went fine. So yes, that is a fact. That is a fact, Matt. There's different kinds of breeding going on in this house. You stop one breeding process just to start up another. Thankfully, we don't, us humans don't produce 20 to 30 offspring at one time, because my God, what a world this would be if we could do that. We'd be overrun. I've been bagging fish and plants all day yesterday and today for a swap in Milwaukee tomorrow. Awesome. That'll be fun. I've never done a swap. I was supposed to go to one here recently in Canton, but I never made it out. So that should be a lot of fun. I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully you get what you're bagging up, that you'll get what you're looking for, and they get to maybe get some things in the process too. So wish you the best of luck for you. Planted tanks are once a month, and I can see that too. Planted tanks help with the oxygen in the tank too, so that makes sense. And your cichlid tank every 2 weeks. So you kind of run the same system for me with my cichlid tanks, and I would much rather do it every couple weeks, because that's kind of like the general basis of the people that I've known, the YouTubers that I've checked out, and the people that I've followed. That it seems like a 2 week is kind of like a good thing to do. I think Jesse does it like once a month to maybe once every couple of months. Salient Aquatics. So I just think that's kind of, for me, like a general rule of thumb. If your stock levels and your tank size and everything is kind of like where it needs to be, and you're not overcrowding too much to where it's, because I think like if you overstock like a fish, like an African cichlid tank, like really overstock it, I feel like you would really have to maintain your water changes and really keep up on them, like almost probably once a week. And especially when you're doing like what I was doing with breeding African cichlids, is you really have to do once a week water changes on all like the smaller tanks, like your 10s and 20 gallons, to make sure that those fish are healthy, they're growing, that their growth potential is, at the highest that it can be, try to keep the water clarity perfect, that sort of thing. So it's a lot of process, because you're constantly feeding the fish all the time. So you got to make sure that the parameters of the water are good, so that way they can grow and flourish and keep everything nice and crystal clear, so then get a healthy environment. So that all plays a good part in all that sort of thing. Milwaukee Aquarium Society. That sounds like a great time, Brenton. That sounds like a wonderful time. So yeah, I think in a nutshell, like if a local fish store does big water changes and they do great with it, then have at it. Like I said before, like I feel like, just from my personal experience, I don't like to do that, just because I know that my fish down here are African cichlids and Central and South American here, and I'm going to gravitate out of African cichlids at a very slow pace. I've gotten rid of a lot of stuff, long story short, but once these 4 tanks are gone, the two 60s, the 75s, then I'll be getting other stuff over there. Then those two 40-gallon breeders, those will be gone eventually, so I'll be moving on to something else. I still have that 75-gallon that I talked about. We had an angelfish conversation in my last live stream that I'm still it hasn't left my mind. I would love to do that, and we got a lot of good feedback from like 3G. He's been on my live on Show Me Your Tanks, which I think I'm going to do next week. But on that note too, I will have to do next Friday on my live stream. I'm going to have to do it during the daytime, so you guys have to remember that my next Friday live stream is going to be probably around noon. And I was thinking of doing a Show Me Your Tanks, because I canceled my StreamYard and I have 2 weeks left. So this would be like week 1, and next week would be like my last week to use it. So that would be my last time on my live stream to be able to bring stuff or bring people up on the fly, out and in and out and that sort of thing, to hang out for a little bit. And Brent, you do 50%. So that's kind of like what Scotty does too. And like I said, I do about 50% on my Mbuna tank, and I try to do about a 40% on my 220, and along with all the other tanks that I have, because I feel like that works out really well for me. I haven't had any issues, and it's been working out great. Brandon, what are your thoughts on big water changes? Have you seen people do big water changes at a big box store or your local fish store? Have you ever talked to anyone at your local fish stores? Scotty too. Sweet Polly, if you want to, chime in on that as well. Who else we got? Scotty, Brenton, Jose, if you're still in here hanging out, Craig's. Have you ever seen any of your places where you get your fish at see big water changes, and you ever ask them, hey, just out of curiosity, why the big water changes? Just because you're interested. And the only local fish store that I asked is that's just the way he did it. He wants his fish to be super healthy, and he wants just all his tanks to be clean. Swiffle, thanks for coming in. We're talking about big water changes, my friends. So if you want to chime in on your experience on how you do your maintenance and your water schedule or your water change schedule, have you done big water changes before? What is your average percentage of water changes? Do you think it stresses out the fish? Do you think it doesn't hurt them at all? And obviously, water changes has good benefits, but there's a lot of things to keep an eye out and look for, and just make sure to dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure everything's good. So I want to know everyone's opinions on what they do with their water changes, and if they've ever seen anything from experience or within their own or other fish stores. Let's see. So Sweet Polly says I do 50% weekly on my 75-gallon Severum tank because the nitrates seem to go up really fast. I wish I could stretch it to every 2 weeks, but I'm not sure. And that's something too that, if you've been doing this for a while, Sweet Polly, that if you are testing your waters and then you just automatically know, just from experience of testing your waters from the past, that you're like, I'm going to do this anyways because I already know, like you said, that the nitrates just go up, and you just know that because of doing this for so long. And that's a good practice too. That's comes with experience. That comes with knowing what's in your tank, knowing how that the waste is, what the system is, what filtration you have. That all plays a good effect on everything too, on how often you do water changes, how big of a water change, because everything plays a good part in everything between filtration, what comes out of your tap, what equipment do you have in your tank, and that sort of thing. So I feel like this is a good conversation that we can have in everyone's experience. So it seems like a general consensus that a 50% give or take is a pretty good option for everyone, because it doesn't stress the fish out too much to where they're like on the very bottom, wondering what the heck's going on, as opposed to like they still have some room to swim around in. So that way, if there's something that they need to get away from or something they're uncomfortable with, that they can go to a spot where they feel a little bit more comfortable during a water change, where that pump is going in the water or whatever. Scotty says, I've never seen my local store do any water changes. I only have Petco and PetSmart here. Yeah, I'm very fortunate because I have a lot of local fish stores within an hour or so, give or take, of my house. Like I could think of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know there's another one. 6, yeah. Because all right, yeah. I just thought of 6 just now off the top of my head that are all within about an hour and 10 minutes or less, and most of them were about a half hour. And then there's a couple of them that are about 15 minutes from my house. And I've actually have seen them, most of them, do water changes before, just because I happen to go in on their maintenance day, when the days when they're not technically open, but they're still doing maintenance. And I just requested to say, hey, do you mind if I stop by and pick this fish up, to make sure that you save it for me because I really liked it. And I'll actually call in and say, hey, I saw this. I want to come in tomorrow and pick this one up. And sometimes I've been very fortunate that they're good to work with. And I go and pick that fish up, and then their tanks are like down to here. Or, I come in like in the morning, first thing when they open, and all their tanks are down here doing the water changes when they're open. So it's like, whoa, don't mean to be interrupting your water change system. Swivel does 50% too. Yeah, and Swivel, I do about a 40% water changes, except for something that's like a little bit more overstocked. So this is a thing, I'm glad you brought this up too. So with your shrimp tanks, just from the stuff that I've looked up and just from my very little experience, I'm sure Brandon could piggyback on this too, but shrimp could be, if I'm not mistaken, are a little bit more sensitive to water changes. So you have to do it maybe more frequently in a less amount, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me on that too, because I'm not the shrimp expert. But if there's fish that are relatively sensitive, then that would be something to be take note of. Yeah, if anyone hasn't checked out Jose's video, it's really quick, 6 minutes long or so. It was really nice to see that brief overview of Aquashello on his day that he hung out. Sweet Polly does a 10 to 20% on shrimp only tanks. So it seems like the smaller water changes are on the shrimp tanks, because that was the thing that I was seeing when I was looking things up too, that shrimp can be sensitive, and maybe on some plants and stuff too. But those don't need to be done weekly, like your planet tanks, which makes total sense. Jose does 80% just before the discs start going flat, still all upright. Yeah, wouldn't that be crazy? What if discus, for how they are shaped, wouldn't that be crazy if you like tested it and did like a real like a 90% water change and they're all just swimming like this, just swimming around? That'd be crazy if that's what they did. Correct. Okay, so yeah, I'm glad that I was correct on that. That was a total guess from what I've looked up and from what the comments have been rolling in about. So, but with that being said, you still changed 50%. Fair enough, and no issues. That's good. That's very good to hear, Brandon. Thank you for that comment and reply on that. I appreciate it. Scotty's got hard water at his place, so my shrimp are not really affected with a 50% water change. Okay, so I didn't know that. So shrimp like the hard water then that comes in off of your tap then, because my water that's coming from the well here, which is very nice. I've done a water change without putting dechlorinator in it a couple times, but just because we have all 4 seasons here in Ohio, that I just don't really trust what comes out of the ground, because it could change, and different things could be coming in throughout the well water, that I still add dechlorinator anyways. And plus we also go through a water softener too. So with that being said, I always still add my dechlorinator and that sort of thing. But do shrimp, like, does all shrimp, they generally like harder water then, like around like maybe like the 8 to 7.8, something like that? I want to know, actually. But yeah, I think it's a good topic, because like I said, I've never had this topic before, and I've never seen it on someone else's live stream, even with all like the bigger live streams and stuff too. And I think this is it's good information. It's good to hear this stuff and run it through our minds and kind of talk amongst yourself and get this information. So it's good to see. Okay, so they love the hard water then. That's good. That's very, very good. So yeah, I appreciate everyone's input. That helps us all. And Jose says he doesn't have no clues on shrimp, never had them. I had some for a short period of time, and I don't have them anymore. I would like to get into them again. So we'll see what kind of the future holds with this 75-gallon, and we'll see what other things I have in store. Because I still have a 20-gallon long that's running currently, and the tiger and Buddha is just staring at me in the face. He's like, "What?" Like he's been staring at me this entire time. I had him in quarantine because his fins were horribly damaged and his side body was pretty beaten up. I mean, he was still okay, but like it took me forever to get him out of this Buddha tank. But he got beat up really bad, so I want to add him back in here and kind of monitor him. Probably maybe like next weekend or maybe next week when I have a little bit more time. But I'm keeping this 20-gallon long as a quarantine tank for now, because thankfully I had this because I set this up immediately with already established media and just put it in with a sponge filter and called it a day. So it worked out great. But I'm still going to keep this 120-gallon long, in case I decide to leave it here, and then maybe Brent and we can talk, in the near future we can get some more shrimp going for me, so I can try to get that going again. And I'll have a bigger tank to work with too. Population explosion keeps me away. May try them. Yep. Cardina shrimp like soft water. Neos like hard water. Okay. Well, that's good to know. I'll have to maybe jot that note down on there. Soft, and then Neos is the hard water. Interesting. You are the shrimp expert. You are the shrimp master, my friend. I bow to you, shrimp master. Yeah, so that's what I was getting at, Brandon, too. So once this guy's out of quarantine, which he's just about ready to come out because his stripes, his black barred stripes, are looking better. His body's all healed up. Before I add him back in here, though, I want to make sure to watch him and monitor him to make sure that he does okay and he's not getting destroyed again. And then after that is done, then I can kind of put this tank back into how I want it and maybe get some plants because, Brandon, I don't have that 2.4 gallon anymore. And it got ahead of me a little bit, and I actually lost a lot of that shrimp that was in that tank when I first started that. So that's why in the 2.4, it's like, I like that tank, Brenton, but the 2.4 gallon, man, it's a small tank. I mean, like the cleaning utensils you have to use for those tanks. If I'm just trying to be picky about it, because I know like some of your tanks are just kind of like natural and you just let like some of the algae build up, that sort of thing. But man, like in order to do like water changes and stuff, I needed a different tank because that was a good small little tank, but you could only keep like very minimal stuff in there, and it was very, very hard and difficult to clean and maintain because it was like a setup all in one setup. So like you had to like it was a good setup, but it was kind of like as the longer I had that thing, the more of a kind of a pain it was to maintain it, to clean, to do the filter and that sort of thing. So I'm going to do this again. So that's why I have this 20-gallon long to start this shrimp tank back up with a few other stuff, and have a little bit more room, buy some more plants, and you and I can work together at that as the future comes along. So I haven't forgotten about it. I know you love your small tanks. You and your small tanks get along great, and that's phenomenal. Like I said, you are the shrimp master. And you're probably the shrimp guru or the shrimp. I'm trying to think of a Star Wars term. I'm not huge into Star Wars, but I'm trying to think of like what term would be great for you. the Jedi shrimp master. There we go. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of my live stream for tonight. I was only going to be on here for about an hour. So I do appreciate you guys being on here. Shrimp Jedi Master. Yes, absolutely. There you go, Sweet Polly. And like I know that the Aqua Shell is going on in New Jersey. There's another live stream going on. And yeah, it's so like, I don't dwell on this per se, but I'm still trying to figure out a day that works best for me because I think it's impossible these days to not walk over someone else's live stream. So I'm not really too concerned about that per se. Maybe a little bit, just because I'm like I try not to walk on Jesse's live stream because he has his Saturdays at 9 a.m. and he does it all the time. I try to stay away from like the bigger channels, but like as far as like the smaller channels, it's almost impossible for us to not walk over each other. Oh boy, here we go with this again. You guys are destroying my family-friendly channel. Sensei. Now we're talking like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, sweet Polly. Sweet Polly. Yeah, and that's hard to, Scotty. I get it. Sometimes even to, Scotty, I really appreciated you doing the Hydra 150. It was such an interesting, different take on it. Because when you do your own and you look up like briefly others and stuff like that, it's kind of cool whenever I do the Hydra 150 and I do a follow up on it, and then it was like, oh look, Scotty's doing one too. So it's kind of like nice to see your own rendition of what you think of the filter and how you set it up and put it together, that sort of thing. So I really appreciate you doing that. I watched that whole entire video, by the way, Scotty. I was on a night shift, so that was a good video. Thank you, Scotty, for putting that out. And I'm curious to see the longevity of it, of your experience with that as well. So I'll be looking out for maybe like 3-4 months from now, kind of like me, and see what you think of it down the road. Sweet Polly, I was there on Jesse's live stream, and I was there first thing in the morning. And then within like 5-10 minutes, my daughter woke up, and then she kind of took over everything. And she then went to play a game on my phone, and then she had to get breakfast ready. And then after that, we kind of left shortly after that because she wanted to go to the park. So, I mean, we have to make her happy. So we did that. So I was on Jesse's live stream for probably 15 minutes or so. And then it was like I was pretty much, my daughter took over after that. So it just happened all at once. Like she got up shortly after, and it was all her after that. And then I jumped on Ben Ochart's live stream. I caught like I was like in the middle of it, and then I caught the very end of it when he was talking about, he was reading through all the comments and stuff and whatnot. So I popped in at the very end there. Scotty says it's an automatic for you. Too early for you, sweet Polly. A lot of editing on it. I was so messed up. That's one thing that I saved some stuff, and I always thought about making a blooper video, but I don't know. I guess I'm just more particular about things that I keep telling myself I'm going to make a blooper video, and then I never do it, because then I'm going to see all these people are going to be like, what an idiot. He dropped something, or like the whole canister filter dropping on the ground, or like you're trying to take pieces and parts off and it flips off to the side and that sort of thing. But I just never do it. I guess I just, whenever I get things, like Hydra, whenever I got products from them, or if I did things for Aqua Decor, something that's, something that's been given to me, I want to make sure to keep those videos professional, and I don't want anything that's going to be messed up that the company gives to me as an offer to sell, that I want them to be as professional as I can without any blooper videos, because I don't want that to look bad on them. So that's why I don't put out blooper videos for that sort of thing. Now, for stuff that's like, messing around with me and Saline Aquatics and everyone doing the whole buckets thing, and we're hanging out live stream, talking to each other and that sort of thing, it's all fun and games there, just like we did with my last live stream. But yeah, I agree with you 100%, sweet Polly. Life happens, sometimes, when you make an appearance, especially with toddlers, sometimes, you might be good and you might be, getting down on your water changes, you're getting down on your maintenance schedules, you're doing things around the house, you're getting things done. But like, I swear, as soon as you make an appearance and your face shows up and their toddler sees you, it's like, well, my day's shot. Looks like this water change is going to be on hold for the next several hours, because now we got to do X, Y, Z that we were supposed to do yesterday. And now my daughter's bringing it up to me and say, hey, we didn't do this. So it's just like, it happens. So long story short, in a nutshell, that was why I changed a lot in my fish room because of what the future holds for me. So I get it. Um, yeah, I usually try to, with my work schedule, I try to get most of Jesse's, but today it just didn't work out. I had really good intentions for Jesse's live stream, and I had it up, but then it just didn't work out for me. And then I got caught up on other stuff, shopping around with the family, and then I caught Ben's live stream at the very end. So yeah. So yeah, that is my hour of power live stream. I got like a few more minutes before I'm going to head upstairs and hopefully catch my daughter before she goes to sleep. This is usually her time to where she's getting out of the bathtub, and hopefully we can say goodnight to her. Even sometimes get lucky and kind of get her to sleep. Before we do our own thing and that sort of thing. So it's fine, man. I don't sweat it at all. It's all right. I think I might be. I don't know. I haven't seen my folks in the live stream tonight, which I was surprised because I sent them both the link, and I haven't seen my mom or dad unless they're lurking. Maybe they're working and lurking, or maybe they're sleeping. I don't know. I'm not sure if they're in Florida or not either. So, so you might be good, Jose. I think the only person I don't think there's anyone you have to worry about tonight. So I think you're on the safe zone right now. Brandon is past his bedtime. He's bagging fish, man. He's bagging fish, probably hanging out. That's why you need grandkids. You feed them full of sugar, then send them home. You're like, all right, well, they're not my problem now, right? See you later. You guys can have fun with that. No, I'm sure your grandkids are a whole lot of fun. Good night, sweet Polly. See you around next time. I'll hopefully see you next live stream, and if not, we'll see you around. So thanks for coming in, sweet Polly. But yeah, you're on the safe zone right now, Jose. So what you said was perfectly fine. Jose, I have a funny thing to tell you, and I'm not going to tell you in this live stream because it's kind of this is all like I'll just tell you like on the phone or maybe in a text or something like that. But I have something funny to tell you on a comment on one of my videos that kind of I didn't take it like in this way because I knew what you were talking about, but it was funny how this kind of all played out. So I'll kind of text you that maybe after I'm done with this live stream. It's something funny that happened. Spoil them and send them home. Yeah. But Grandma and Grandpa, they have so much at their house. I want to go play at their house. Keep going. I had to take care of some things. Well, I'm sure that you have a lot of things to take care of, especially when it comes to your you're probably like finishing up, cleaning up with the bathroom stuff that you were doing earlier today. Is my guess. Yeah, Scotty came in. Branton's in. Yep. I think Branton's still bagging fish for his swap meet tomorrow in Milwaukee, which is pretty cool. But yeah. Oh, so not bathroom related, Jesse. Were you working and lurking during the live stream, or you just kind of popped back in just now? I think it was a good topic. I'm really glad that we talked about this. I don't have any other planned topics for next week. I think I'm planning to do a Show Me Your Tanks as a last hoorah because I don't know if or when I'm even going to do StreamYard anymore. So it's going to be like a last StreamYard, thing to where I can invite people up and hang out for a little bit. But it's going to be at noon though. Oh, it was raining, so you had to make sure the gutters I put up were working. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, if you guys are good, unless one of you guys want to come up and join and hang out for a little bit, I can put the link up. And if you any guys want to come and join in, you're more than welcome to. I'll give you guys a few more minutes to decide on that. But yeah, it was a good night. I liked tonight. And it seemed like my audio, my friend Tim, he fixed my audio issue that I was having. It had something to do with my laptop, and it was within. I have a Acer laptop, and it was something that was popping up that was coming on that had like some AI configurations of trying to like figure out, deafening out the background noise to what you're talking through the mic, and also at the same time, I was battling output audio issues within that AI program that AC or the Acer laptop had. So it was just literally a flip of a switch for both of those. And it seems like everything is working out fine now, which is great. Because, man, I was struggling with that for a while now. So I'm really glad that we were able to solve that. So I was able to hear my intro. And if I do a show me your tanks again next week, next Friday at noon, hopefully I can get someone on here to kind of test that out. But I'm thinking it should be fine because Tim, this was the savior for that for me yesterday. He came over and did that for me. And he's my computer whiz. Whenever I have computer problems or if I have a question, 90% of the time he could normally solve that problem. I would say, if not more than that. Hey June, thanks for lurking around. I appreciate it. I don't mind the lurk. I'm sure you've heard enough conversation to know, so I appreciate you hanging out for a little bit. I have Finn's Fish Club in my area. You can get really good prices. Yeah. I have a really good local fish store. It's an hour from my house. I always talk about it. It's called Ag Aquatics, and it is probably by far the drive kind of sucks to go there because it's nothing but highway driving. And then when you get off the highway in the city, it's like the busiest, tightest traffic city driving I think I've ever experienced. And it's a pain to get there, but then once you get there, it's totally worth it because the owners, George and his wife, and Jim from Happy Place Aquatics, he's the one that actually told me about them. But it is probably like the cleanest, most knowledgeable place. They're real personal with their customers. And George has helped me out with taking fish, from here, from my house, and I was downsizing. He helped me out a lot. He gave me good prices for the return rate of giving the fish to him. So I've had a very, very good overall experience, and I don't think I go there at that Ag Aquatics more than any other local fish store currently, even the ones that are 15 minutes from my house. So yeah, it's nice to have that. Fine fish clubs. Okay. Yeah, that's always nice, especially when you can get the what'd you say, the fish fan members. Yeah, that's all that works out well. So I don't really have much else to talk to you guys about. I kind of got out what I needed to, and it's just kind of up to you guys how long you guys want to run it. If anyone wants to stop out, they're more than welcome to. But if not, I was going to end the stream here. Hopefully see my daughter before she goes to bed. But I do appreciate each and every one of you guys coming in. Like I said, my next live stream is going to be at noon on Friday. I just got to create the topic for it. And because I have to, that's during my whole week at work. So I'm going to be on a night shift that night. So that's why I have to do a live stream at noon. But that's the one time a month on the Friday that I'll do it. And I thought about switching to Sundays too, but I'm still trying to stick with a good schedule of doing it Fridays for now, because it seems like you guys kind of generally have an idea of where and what time that I want to do this. So I want to try to keep that going. So yeah, if you guys don't have anything for me, I appreciate you guys hanging out. There's like 9 people watching I see here. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the rest of the other YouTube live streams. Do something fun. Have a drink for me. And then just enjoy the rest of your weekend. You still got one more day before Monday rolls around. So enjoy it while you can. And take care of yourselves. Be happy. Be healthy. And have a good one. Thanks for stopping out. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time.